Hi everyone, my name is Erin Meyer. I am the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator here at the University of California, Merced. Today we have an AMA, an Ask Me Anything session with Caroline Cotto of Renewal Mill, and we're going to talk about upcycled food, probably food in general, food waste, ingredients with a story, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself and just say a couple of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Erin. Like Erin said, my name is Caroline. I'm the co-founder of Renewal Mill, which is an upcycled food company. So at our heart, we're really trying to fight food waste, specifically at the manufacturing level. So we take the byproducts left over from right now primarily plant-based milks and turn them into high fiber, high protein, gluten-free flours that we then sell as ingredients, as well as use to make a variety of delicious value-added products like cookies and baking mixes.
Awesome. All right, and if anyone has any questions, they can either raise their hand or put it in the chat, whatever works best for you. Just because sometimes we don't get to them, I'm going to start first with the people's questions who put them in the registration link. So one of the first questions was, why does the government not have a team to investigate new innovations that improve food waste collections? And how can we team up with them if they were to?
Yeah, that's a great question. There definitely are a lot of initiatives happening to combat food waste through the government, but right now a lot of it is at a local, regional, or state level. So California and New York have kind of been two of the leading states in kind of implementing food waste policy. And everybody is kind of dealing with different aspects of the food waste problem. So laws that make it easier to donate food before it starts going bad at the grocery store, or laws that make it easier to donate food left over when you have like an event, like Good Samaritan laws. And then there's other policies that prevent like zero waste to landfill laws. So California has one of these going into effect where food manufacturers are no longer allowed to send any organic waste material to landfill. So they have to have an alternative solution. And that's where companies like ours can be helpful to help them upcycle those byproducts so that they have an offtake. All to say, a lot of the policy at the federal level is regulated by the US Farm Bill. And there's actually going to be a vote on the US Farm Bill in 2023. So an organization called ReFed and the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic just put out a bunch of recommendations for policymakers in the government about what they recommend gets included in the Farm Bill as it pertains to food waste. So I would definitely recommend checking that out and then contacting your representatives to help make sure that some of that legislation gets passed and a lot of the sort of funding details to help combat food waste from the federal level.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. All right. How can we bring more collaboration to this effort?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, again, it kind of depends on what part of the food waste problem you're working on. So from where I sit in the upcycled kind of subsector of food waste reduction, we love partnering with companies that have byproducts and finding creative ways to use them. So for example, our first partner is a tofu company here in Oakland called Hodo Foods. And our flagship product is the pulp left over from making soy milk, which is the first step of making tofu. So we partner with them to take their soybean pulp and create okara flour out of it, which is that high protein, high fiber, gluten-free flour. We also recently partnered with Miyoko's Creamery, which is a vegan butter and cheese company. They have a lot of leftover butter in their machine at the end of every production run that wasn't being utilized. So we partnered with them to take all of that end of run butter and use it to create a ready to eat soft baked cookie. So I think especially in upcycling, there's a lot of opportunities to create closed loop systems through partnerships and kind of help rising tides lift all boats, because we know that it's definitely challenging from like all of us, waste food in some capacity at different levels, but especially at the food manufacturing level, there's a lot of opportunity to utilize partnerships to make sure that we're using 100% of the food we produce.
Excellent. And I know that you have a couple of different flavors with Miyokos. Is there any chance of other flavors? You have the chocolate chip and the peanut butter.
Yeah, that's right. So our kind of two first SKUs are a chocolate chip cookie and a salted peanut butter cookie. We're definitely looking at bringing on a third soft baked cookie, and then hopefully some additional sweet baked desserts like ready to eat brownie. But we're always taking suggestions. So if there's a flavor that people definitely want to see, we'd love to hear it. I think right now for the third cookie SKU, we're leaning towards sort of double chocolate or something like that.
Oh, I was going to suggest maybe a snickerdoodle.
Yeah, we have a snickerdoodle cookie mix that's super popular, but yeah, I think that would also be a great addition for a ready to eat cookie.
Awesome. And I'm looking at your website now, and I didn't know that you had a collaboration with Oko. Can you tell me more about that one?
Yeah, so we love partnering, especially with women-owned brands, to create all sorts of different products for our direct-to-consumer business. So our latest one is a baking kit with a single origin spice company called Oko. They basically create these spice cards where you get like a pod of each of the spices. So it's also intended to prevent waste because they're only providing as much as you need. And so we are doing like a try snickerdoodle mix with them. So there's like 3 different types of spices that you mix with sugar to create 3 different types of snickerdoodles. And then we're also doing a Mexican hot chocolate brownie kit. So some chili in there and some cinnamon and other spices, both of which are super delicious, but they are a very cool female-owned company from Brooklyn.
Absolutely. It touches on the good, like all of these collaborations just totally answered that question that person had about bringing more collaboration to the effort. Are there any future collaborations besides Oko and Miyoko's, and are they going to be ending with the Oko?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I think we try to do about 1 collaboration a quarter. So previously we've partnered with Burlap and Barrel, which is a single origin spice company. We partnered with Oakland Spice Shop here, which is another spice company. This fall, we're going to be partnering with a women-owned company that makes date sugar and date syrup. So sort of low glycemic sweeteners to create like a holiday bread mix with them. So that'll be coming in the fall.
Ooh, awesome. All right. Now I want to ask my previous point about the ingredients of the story. Just for some context for the folks that joined, behind her, it says ingredients with a story. So what is that tagline all about?
Yeah, so like I said, we take byproducts from food manufacturing and create new ingredients out of them. So like our flagship ingredient is the okara flour, which is actually a 1-to-1 substitute for coconut flour. So kind of light and fluffy, but full of nutrition because it's about 60% fiber. It's also keto friendly because it's really low in net carbs. And then we do the same thing with the pulp left over from oat milk production. So we transform that into a high protein oat flour that's about 50% protein. And we're starting to add more and more ingredients to our portfolio. So our newest ingredient is going to be an heirloom corn flour that's a byproduct of corn milling, actually. So it's like the fines left over when you make cornmeal. And then we're also adding a green banana flour and a pineapple pumice flour, both of which come from sort of excess fruit production. But all of this is to say that, you know, we previously historically have just thrown out byproducts when in fact we're often processing out most of the nutrition from our food system. And so our entire company exists to kind of tell the story of those ingredients that were otherwise being lost and how those are being brought back into the supply chain, and then to really celebrate them as hero ingredients because they have lower carbon footprints than some of their traditional counterparts. Like I said, they're often packed with a sort of nutrient density, and they taste really delicious and can kind of really elevate products.
Absolutely. All right. Any questions, Grace or Diane? Feel free and throw them in the chat if you do have any. So do you ever at Renewal Mill find yourself with too much food, like surplus food? Does anything ever go to waste in the warehouse and so on?
Yeah, it's a great question. We try really hard to make sure that we're doing adequate inventory planning to, produce everything and sell everything that we produce. Sometimes our cookies do have a shorter shelf life of about 4 months. And so if we're not able to sell them, we do try to donate them to like local food banks before they expire. But for the most part, we try to make a very concerted effort to sell everything. And a lot of our products have a shelf life of 18 months, which is quite long. So gives us lots of opportunities to make sure that they get used.
Absolutely. Pardon me. Right. And then someone asked, what is your biggest tip for breaking into the product space with a new upcycled product?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've worked really hard to help create the Upcycled Food Association over the last like 3 to 4 years. And it's grown from about 9 to over 200 members, but it's an excellent resource for companies that are just getting off the ground for how to like break into the upcycled food market. You can get your product certified as upcycled, and really leverage like sales and marketing opportunities through them to kind of get your product out. But I would say it's pretty similar to traditional, like if you're creating a CPG, like consumer packaged good product, using upcycled ingredients, it's pretty similar to other traditional CPG products as far as if you're going like direct to consumer, you could do that through your website, or if you're going retail, there's kind of traditional pathways for getting into distribution. But I think just having an upcycled product opens a lot of doors as far as the marketing story around sustainability. So figuring out how to tell your upcycled story in a way that really resonates with consumers is important. So for us, that looks like talking about how much water is saved for every pound of upcycled flour is used, or how much food waste is diverted from landfill, or sort of the carbon emissions associated with preventing food from ending up in landfill. So kind of figuring out how to package that data as it relates to your product can be really helpful in telling that story. And ultimately, it all comes down to taste. So having a product that you're proud of that tastes delicious, I think first and foremost is really important, because ultimately consumers do purchase according on taste more than anything. And then I think if you're upcycled, it's an additional feather in your cap for your product.
So does the association have like workshops to help their members, or are there any other like helpful points? Why would we're not here to promote Upcycled Food Association necessarily, but like why would one want to join that besides just the networking?
Yeah, definitely. They have all sorts of like webinars on like packaging and sales and marketing, and the latest research being done on upcycled food and sort of consumer perceptions. They also have opportunities for like trade show placement. So if you're just getting off the ground and you're not big enough to like have your own booth at a trade show, you can exhibit and do sampling through like their booth, and kind of use that as a platform for jumping off of. But it's just ultimately like a great nonprofit for sort of all the research being done around this topic. And they are like launching commercials for helping with consumer education, because that's often a big piece. Most consumers still don't know what upcycled food is. So it's great to have like a rising tides lift all boats mentality of people kind of helping get out there and educate consumers of like, what is upcycled food? Why should I care about it? What is the tangible impact that we can measure around it, and things like that.
Awesome. So what are you and Renewal Mill doing to combat that as well? Besides like having a lot of information and awesomeness on your website?
Yes. So, we helped create the Upcycled certification, and it's really important to us that we avoid greenwashing in any sort of situation here. So we want consumers to have real trust in what that certification means. And so there's like a third-party audit that happens to show the verifiable supply chains behind upcycled food and so the measurable impact from a food waste reduction perspective as well as a carbon reduction perspective. And then we put that right on front of our pack and use that as an opportunity to educate consumers. And we do a lot of, like, obviously on our website, but also on our packaging. We have like QR codes so people can kind of scan and learn more information. And then try to do as many like education events in the community and demos in grocery stores as possible to kind of interact with people in real time.
So, what does greenwashing mean?
Yeah, basically it's like, we want to avoid people like slapping a sustainability label on a product because it's cool. And then that loses all kind of verification and trust. So that's kind of what happened with the word natural in like the 90s and 2000s. People were just putting natural on everything. And so today when you see like natural on a product, it barely means anything, which is pretty different from something like certified USDA organic. Because when you see organic, you know that it's gone through like a verified audit process to actually guarantee that the farm or the company is following organic practices. So we want to make sure that there's real integrity behind our claims.
Absolutely. It's hard to know still. There's so much information left and right. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay. I had a question and I totally spaced it. Oh, I was going to ask you, how did you get into this work?
Yeah, my background is mostly in food and nutrition, but from a kind of nutrition health perspective. So my early career was spent on sort of child obesity and child malnutrition research. And then I completely pivoted into tech and ended up working in food tech for a startup accelerator that was helping incubate businesses along the food supply chain at all different parts. And in doing that, working for that accelerator, I stumbled upon and met my co-founder who had a juice company in Boston, and she had experienced food waste firsthand through that company. So she was, juicing tons of fresh organic fruits and vegetables, being left with a mountain of pulp at the end of every day that she just couldn't do anything with. And she tried baking it into muffins and crackers, but there was just too much of it. And so she said, like, there has to be a better way. And then we had a fortuitous meeting with the owner of the tofu company that we partner with. And he was basically like, you think you make a lot of pulp in your tiny juicing business? I'm making tons and tons of pulp at my tofu facility every week. And so that's kind of when the light bulb went off. And we were like, there has to be a better way to keep all of this valuable nutrition in the supply chain. So we got our hands on some of that pulp and started kind of playing around with it in the kitchen and realized that it was just sort of a really magical ingredient with actually a storied history in East Asia, where they've been using it for a long time. If you made soy milk at home, you would never sort of throw away that pulp. You would saute it with fruits or with vegetables to create like a side dish or use it in baking. So that's kind of what set us off on the path. And yeah, we're about 6 years in at this point.
Awesome. And you specifically, where did you study at?
I went to Georgetown for undergrad, and my focus was human science with a focus on nutrition.
Oh, cool. Okay. And so then what brought you to California?
We actually moved out here because of our first partner, this tofu company. So we met in Minnesota and then moved out here to work with them.
Got it. So you moved out here specifically to start that relationship.
Yep.
Cool. Does your location, and like, does Renewal Mill in general offer tours if someone was interested?
Right now, because of COVID, it's still a little challenging. So we don't offer factory tours, but we do have like an office warehouse space that's open for folks to come swing by and say hello. But it's not like it's kind of walking you through the whole process. Hopefully we'll get back to that, being able to do that when things calm down a little bit. But the mask mandate just went back into effect here in Alameda County. So not quite there yet.
Yeah. Someday soon, though, I hope. Cross my fingers over here.
Yeah, that would be great.
Grace, if you've had any questions that have arisen, feel free and throw it into the chat. I don't really have much more. Usually these are driven by the community because it's an Ask Me Anything. So do you have any questions for us, or do you have any like thoughts too that you wanted to share about upcycled food, Renewal Mill?
Yeah, I'd love to hear just kind of what your main focus is right now at UC Merced for sustainability at large.
Sure. So I run the sustainable food programs rather, and we do a lot of just food rescue around the county and picking that up and bringing it to a variety of locations. What we would love, and we've talked about this in the past, would be to upcycle some of that food. Like UC Davis has some programs where I think at least they used to, and I've heard of this anecdotally, but they like had olive trees, I believe, and ended up making it into olive oil or something. So I would love to do something like that, like all the oranges out here, like jam them and then sell those jams and then use that to like hire more students or something. So I don't know if you have any advice on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot of food banks actually across the country that are doing similar things of taking excess produce and creating jams and spreads. So yeah, definitely can be a viable model for sure.
I know that you donate occasionally to like food banks and food pantries. Have you ever considered working with some to get some of their extras? Because I know that occasionally, like I have direct knowledge of working with our food bank, inevitably sometimes they have surplus food too. Have you ever thought about working with like the Alameda County Food Bank to rescue some of that like surplus oranges and create it into a product or something?
Yeah, we're actually starting to have some of those initial conversations with food banks in the Bay Area. You know, it's a little bit challenging just because that supply is a little unstable. So it's great for creating like direct to consumer or retail products where it can be a little bit more flexible. But what we do on sort of the larger scale of ingredients and products, we try to look for byproduct streams that have a little bit more stability just so that we can guarantee that stability to our customers. But yeah, definitely starting to have some of those initial conversations and see what might be feasible in the future. I think right now we're really focused just on kind of the dry products and creating shelf stable products that can last a super long time. But there's definitely a whole host of possibilities with excess produce for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. Because like it's orange season right now, but it's not always orange season. So maybe
Totally.
get limited time offerings, but maybe not year round. So Grace put in the chat, I'm curious how you identify partners for your quarterly collaborations and what the process looks like from idea to final product.
That's a great question. Sometimes the partners come to us and sometimes we kind of reach out because we're big fans of their brand. But often it's pretty organic. We kind of identify, you know, companies that have products that would be synergistic with us. So right now that's looked like a lot of spice companies, tea companies, like companies that produce inclusions for like cookies or baked goods. So once we've identified them and kind of what products they would like to showcase of theirs and what products we want to showcase of ours, we work with a 5 times James Beard award-winning cookbook author from Berkeley named Alice Medrich, who does all of our product development. So we usually get her samples of the ingredients, and then she kind of works her magic as far as kind of ideating on what the best product would be to showcase those ingredients. So in the case of our like pumpkin spice mix that we did with Oaktown Spice Company, she kind of, we wanted a format to highlight their pumpkin spice blend and our okara flour. And so she created a pumpkin spice cookie mix that's become one of our kind of best seasonal sellers for the fall. And then once we have sort of an initial prototype, we like send it out to we have like an Upcycled insiders group of people who are kind of close to the brand and can sign up to get insider updates from us. So we send that out for testing, get their feedback, and then if everything is a go, we go live with it and kind of work with them to do joint marketing around like press releases and social media updates and get the word out to both of our audiences.
Cool. So if someone was listening to this and they wanted to join as an insider, would they be able to, or is that really just like insiders?
No, definitely. You can sign up on our website. It's like a little field where you input your email address and then you'll be added to the list.
Awesome. And does your chef offer like workshops? Because sometimes like, I don't know what to make with this flour. So do they offer any sort of like virtual workshops or demos or anything fun like that?
Yeah. So the baking mixes are kind of our easiest to use products. They're just add oil and water. And so we definitely, offer those. We do occasional like Zoom classes for teaching people how to make more complicated things with the flours and with the baking mixes. And then we're trying more and more to do additional video content on kind of like evergreen video content and how to use these products in different applications. So hopefully more of that will be coming soon.
You say it's easy, just add oil and water, but I'm not a great cook.
I am not either, and that's kind of a lot of the feedback we get from some of our like most loyal customers are we have like this very cute dad from New York who's like, I literally don't cook and I've never baked, but he's like, it was so easy that I was able to do it by myself and like make it for my kids' class. But yeah, it's super simple, just like, it's room temperature, oil and water, one bowl, kind of one pan. And the product is super delicious on the other end. So I believe in you, Erin.
Which one's your favorite? Like of all the products you have, either like the cookies or the baking mixes or anything that is not on the website that you've tried and are getting ready to launch, like what's your favorite item?
So our best-selling product is our dark chocolate brownie mix. I think it's probably my favorite product as well. And I think the best compliment we get is that people can't tell that it's vegan and gluten-free, which, I think there's often a stigma about like what vegan food tastes like or gluten-free products. And so the fact that people are like, this is absolutely delicious is a huge win. And then of our ready-to-eat products, our new salted peanut butter cookie is highly addictive in my opinion. So I have to keep them away because I'm constantly surrounded by peanut butter cookies while I'm sitting here working all day.
Yeah, that would be really rough. And so I'm vegan, and that's why I'm like really interested, amongst other reasons, in this product and your products. But why make them vegan? Like you could have just made them gluten-free, and even going gluten-free is hard in itself because you have to have like certified facilities and everything. So like, first of all, why vegan? Second of all, why gluten-free?
Yeah. Well, vegan is really important to us because we're a 100% plant-based company. We, believe that our products should do better for the planet. And so upcycling is one piece of that, but being plant-based is another huge piece of that because, plant-based products have a lower carbon footprint, and we want people to move towards more plant-based diets in general. And gluten-free, when we started, like I said, our first ingredient was that okara flour, which just happens to be naturally gluten-free. And it coincided with sort of a trend of people looking for more gluten-free options. And we kind of looked at the landscape of what was out there for gluten-free and saw that it's a lot of like basic rice flours and starches, which can taste fine, but they're not very nutritionally dense. So we saw an opportunity to sort of level up the gluten-free offerings and deliver on taste, and kind of, people are like, oh, gluten-free products aren't that tasty. And we were like, we can use these ingredients to make something that is as delicious as something with gluten, but just, has more of that nutrition back in it. So all of our portfolio of ingredients continues to be gluten-free for the time being. That might change in the future, but it's kind of where we're sitting right now.
I mean, you definitely picked a challenge, but you're doing it well.
Yeah, we're lucky that Alice, our product developer, her background was, her last cookbook was called Flavor Flours, and it was all about highlighting the benefits of different gluten-free flours. So she's kind of, her expertise is in gluten-free flours and chocolate, which is a great combo for us.
Can you say the name of that cookbook again? I'd like to check it out.
It's called Flavor Flours.
Awesome. And I send out like a little group message after this, an update email, and I'll include the name of that in this email as well, in case anyone wants to go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, definitely. That would be great.
Awesome. All right. I don't have many more questions. We can go ahead and wrap this up early if you want. Otherwise, Grace, if you have some too, we could continue. I'm happy to stay here. I've got plenty of time. And I love talking about this sort of things, but I also want to make sure I respect everyone's time. So any final thoughts, perhaps?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys taking the time and helping us spread the word about upcycled food. Like I said, I think just having sort of that baseline, and if everybody tells a friend about what upcycled food is, it does a lot for the movement, to just kind of get out there and say, like, you can have an upcycled alternative to your favorite product in pretty much every category of the grocery store. So we're trying to make sort of the more sustainable choice, the easy choice for people. So I really appreciate your help in that effort. And if there's anything else we can do to support your work at UC Merced, please definitely let us know.
Absolutely. I feel like there's room for collaboration somewhere, somehow, but I need to think through it a little bit more. Because we did a little bit of collaboration with Regrained, which is a similar upcycled product. I'm sure you're aware of them. They use spent grains and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to think some things through. If you think of any sort of fun thing, let me know. I'm totally open ears.
Yeah, definitely. We're partnering with some other campuses for like any on-site foods that they produce that's like baked goods or flour based, or actually the ready-to-eat cookies. So that's one way that we partner, but definitely open to other opportunities as well, for sure.
Awesome. So like to sell it in their cafes and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So we sell in the like on-campus grocery stores or like in the dining halls. If they're doing any sort of like scratch baking or baked goods there as well.
Yeah. If you have like some sort of pitch or something that I can forward to the people that I know in our dining, I would love to include that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will follow up with you for sure.
Yeah. I'd love to get more like vegan products on campus. We have very few vegan stuff. Like so much so that if I did work on campus more often, I would not be able to eat on campus. So we need more vegan stuff just in the world in general, but UC Merced too.
Yeah, well, we'd love to help with solving that problem for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I know a couple of vegans who would love that. So yeah, feel free to shoot me an email about that. Thank you, Grace, for your questions and for attending. And Caroline, thanks so much for joining. This has been fun. And I hope one day we can get an actual physical tour because I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks so much, Erin. Really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone. Bye.